And good morning, football fans. Welcome to the TFA Game Day Show. I am going to be the number one host today, putting Anthony on the bench here for in case you're doing fantasy podcast or game day show. You can start me this week. But my name is Kent Wyrock. You can find me on Twitter at ccnp_Kent. I am joined today by my friends Anthony and Kai. Kai is on Twitter at Kai Squared. And then Anthony is, what's your Twitter handle again?
The one and only PZ with the number one.
Okay, perfect. So we are here to talk about some last-minute start-sit questions, talk about some of our favorite games for the week, maybe have a little bit of injury implication. There are some interesting things going on today as far as players sitting. So it could be kind of one of those days where you can take advantage of certain injury situations, and it could be some sneaky starts in there. So let's go ahead and start breaking down some stuff. We do have one friend in the chat. Adam is here already. So listeners, if you do have any start-sit questions or anything else about your fantasy league you would like to ask us, go ahead and start dropping those in the live chat, and we can get to them as this show goes on here up until kickoff. So, boys, how we feeling? Week 13, it's make it or break a week trying to get into those fantasy playoffs if you're sitting on the bubble. So, how you feeling? How are the leagues looking? You got some playoff hopes?
I'm going to have a lot of start-sit questions for you today, so we don't even need the audience at this point.
So I think I got some myself, so we'll have stuff to talk about.
Well, just make that 3 then. Make that a trifecta of questions that we've already got rolling. I've got some teams that locked up a bye a week ago. I've got teams that have been out of the playoffs for 3 weeks at this point. And then I've got teams kind of on the bubble. So a mixed bag, looking for some good points going into playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of – I don't have anybody with it locked up, but I do have 2 teams that are on the bubble right now trying to get in. One can get in with a win this week, so I'm really hoping that happens. Although this Aaron Jones news kind of affects what I'm going to do there in the flex because I have Jamal Williams in the flex right now. So that's going to – and then the SFB, trying to figure out how this SFB playoffs work. I think it's the top 10 scorers, so I really need my guys to get their game on this week and get some scoring done.
Well, bringing up Aaron Jones, talking about him being a kind of a surprise active. I mean, he was working in limited capacity this week at practice. He came off that MCL sprain, I believe is all it was. So it wasn't really that serious of an injury, but he is active, and people who were starting Jamal Williams were kind of soured a bit at that bit of news. So I think this week, personally, Jamal Williams still gets most of the carries, and, Aaron Jones will just kind of feel out that MCL and see how he does in a game situation. Make sure there's no re-injury possibilities. So I did just sprain my own MCL not too long ago, so I know how that goes. And
oh gosh,
because I'm a serious athlete, guys. You can clearly tell. So,
but you are the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings.
I'm apparently the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. If you listen to the TFA podcast, you will understand what's going on there. Anthony thinks that I am good at throwing a football, and I'm really not, actually.
I just think you have the perfect name. Like, they're introducing the Minnesota Vikings, and your quarterback, Kent Wyrock. It's just perfect.
Listen, of the 3 of us, Kent, you clearly have the best quarterback name, physique, and overall attitude, I'd say.
Well, I'll take that. We'll just say I have the intangibles, and then that'll make my draft stock go up. But anyway, let's talk about some of these injuries that are going on. So some of the big name ones that are going on this week, it looks like Greg Olsen is going to be sitting out from that foot injury that he had last week. He kind of had a limited game last week. I believe he sat out part of the game and didn't really get much going for you. But so he will probably be sitting this week. It is not a confirmed out, but I believe it was Ian Rappaport reported that he's likely not playing. So, we always talk about how tight end is such a sketchy position. It's not good when one of the big names just can't pull it together for you. And, even if you held on to him through the injury, you're really let down by the fact that he's not coming back strong. It's kind of a iffy situation with this whole injury. So would you think about starting the backup tight end there in Carolina in his place?
I mean, Dixon's been playing all year, right? And he hasn't been lighting up the scoreboard exactly.
Yeah, I feel like he had 2 good games, and that was about it. In that whole stretch that Olsen was gone.
A bit disappointed. I thought I'd be able to take advantage of Olsen coming back. And I know it was kind of a long shot because, it's a serious injury if you're out for the majority of the season. But here it is, crunch time, and need him kind of in the lineup to push me towards the playoffs, and he's not available. So that's probably hurting not just me, a lot of people out there who, took a swing on him 3 or 4 weeks ago, kept him on the roster knowing he was going to come back, and now was it all for nothing at this point?
Yeah, in fact, in our TFA redraft league, I did grab Greg Olsen. So I ended up, after he came back, I dropped Tyler Kroft because he was just kind of like a one to two reception, maybe a touchdown kind of guy. So I was just like, I don't want to bank on you anymore. Greg Olsen's my guy. He's back. That'll be great. And then he goes back down. So now I'm starting Seals this week, and I don't feel great about it. I really don't. But
you should, Kent.
I should.
Feel great about it.
Ricky
that man
Seals
is going to
Jones,
win championships for people that haven't already picked him up.
I just can't believe he came pretty much out of nowhere. I mean, 0 targets, I believe, up until 2 weeks ago. So, Jermaine Gresham was never really someone that was an incredible, talent, hard to pass. But Seals Jones seems to have done that. So, it's possible. I think he could be a nice, safe option for. They got Gabbert started again, right? I believe so.
That's another team. Gabbert might start for them next year.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. What's up with these backup quarterbacks all of a sudden becoming like awesome out of nowhere? You know what? Case Keenum for my Vikings and Blaine Gabbert over there, and I don't know. It's nuts, man.
They end up going back to what they are, though. The team should not fall for that trap. Like if Arizona doesn't draft a quarterback next year because they have Blaine Gabbert, that would be the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
They should have drafted one this year, but then chickened out when somebody traded up for Deshaun Watson. I think, it was like 1 pick or 2 picks in front of the Cardinals. I want to say it was 1 pick in front of the Cardinals that Houston traded up. I think, because Hassan Reddick this is the 13th pick. I feel like they would have taken Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah. And, looking back on these drafts, it's so easy to get caught up in like, I should have picked this player. Obviously, he was going to be good, but drafting is can be very hit or miss sometimes. So one other big piece of injury news that I thought was interesting, I think we should talk about since it's a trickier situation. Antonio Brown misses 2 practices for a toe injury, and it was reported that he's actually legitimately questionable. They don't just have the questionable tag on there because we don't have probable anymore. He's actually questionable for Monday Night Football, and as you know, having a player in your lineup for Monday night with an injury designation is not exactly fun. So, what do you guys think? First of all, do you think he plays, or is he going to sit this one out? I'm not really sure. I can't get a read on the situation too well.
Go ahead. You go ahead, Ed.
Well, it's a matchup versus the Bengals, so division matchup, right? But do they need this game, right? Do you play your star wide receiver who's ailing in a game where maybe you don't need him? And that's crazy that it's Monday night, because if they don't need him and if he doesn't play, odds that you have a slot for Martavis Bryant or Juju Smith if he plays are very slim. So this is an aggravating fantasy situation right here, because Martavis Bryant is a 100% start if Brown doesn't play. But it's Monday night. We'll never know. So unless you're starting a Bengal or Steelers wide receiver or flex spot that you feel comfortable benching for Martavis Bryant, let's say if you're a Brown owner and you have Bryant as well, you're in a tough situation right now.
This is what you do. Like you said, Anthony, Martavis probably owned. Juju probably owned. Some guys that might not be owned that play in that game. Brandon LaFell, if you're feeling frisky, he has had a couple of good games, especially in PPR. Hasn't been too predictable with them, but it's better than taking a 0 Monday night. And then because I think you have to hold out. You have to hold out and see if Brown plays, because if he plays, you've got to stick him in there. Even if he plays a quarter, he could have 15 points in one quarter. He's done it plenty of times. So I think if you have Antonio Brown, you're holding out, you're waiting to see what happens, and maybe take that last player on your bench and turn him into Brandon LaFell or maybe Giovanni Bernard if you can wait and sort of stick him in a flex scenario, just because he could catch a pass and run 5 yards into the end zone at any point. He's not starting caliber with Joe Mixon there and the way Joe Mixon's been playing. But if you're desperate and need somebody, I think it's worth waiting, because Antonio Brown could have 25 points tomorrow. Yeah. Yes, the foot injury's been bothering him, but the man is a god in terms of football. So I think on 1 foot he could still have a good game. So I think that's the smart move, is to wait and see what happens and try to get a Bengal or a Steeler that you can wiggle in there for Monday night.
Yeah, have a backup plan ready. For sure.
Antonio Brown, the only player to get an amputated foot and still put up top 5 numbers. That would be something to watch.
He would.
So something for note there real quick with the other receivers on the Steelers is that Juju's in like the 90% owned category. However, Martavis Bryant is lower, down about 50 or 60%. So if you really got to take a long shot, that's an option. I think Martavis Bryant would be a guy that you can scoop up in a decent chunk of leagues. So that would probably be my go-to if he does not play. So just want to throw that out there real quick. We do have a question from Adam, so let's go ahead and jump into this one real quick. He says, we're going to start with a tough one, so we'll see what you guys think. So this is a PPR league. He has a choice of 3 running backs. The first one is DeMarco Murray against the very good Houston run defense. And then the other options are Yeldon versus Indianapolis or Forte versus Kansas City. Would you bench DeMarco Murray for either of these 2 guys?
I haven't been a DeMarco owner this year. Have in the past, though. Is he having this bad of a season where you're considering Yeldon or Forte instead?
Yes, those are the 2 options.
Maybe Forte, but not Yeldon, I don't think. It's close, just the way that the Chiefs have been playing on offense, that the Jets might have all the time in the world to run the ball with Matt Forte. And we've seen him this season plenty of times get 20-plus carries as the Jets almost end up winning or do end up winning. Sorry about your Dolphins there, Anthony. That's okay. But I think you still have to stick with DeMarco Murray. He has shown he has the potential to score 3 touchdowns in a game this season, a couple of weeks ago. And yes, he's been dealing with a hamstring. And yes, Derrick Henry looks like the better player every time he touches the ball. But the Titans still respect DeMarco enough to give him the workload, or at least 40% of the workload. And I think that's worth it against the Texans, who have not looked great since Deshaun Watson has left. Their defense has not looked what it was. I guess the run would be the one thing they can hold their hat on, is that they stop the run. But that's about it. And I think the Titans are going to want to control this game. I think they have no choice. With Rashad Matthews being out, we've talked about that a little bit, but I think the passing game takes a big hit with Rashad Matthews out. I think that DeMarco is still okay to start. I think he's a flex caliber player at this point, just because of the injury and because of how much work Henry's getting. But I still like him over those 2 guys.
I think at this point, Murray and Forte are going to get to the same thing. They're both getting 10 to 15 carries. They're both getting 40 to 60 yards, and there's a possibility for a touchdown. So, I'd probably stick with Murray myself. I don't think there's any chance I'm throwing Yeldon in there. Watch, he'll score 3 touchdowns now today. So,
no, don't you curse us with that now, would you? There are Leonard Fournette owners out there that just slam their table in anger at you, Anthony. But
that's okay.
For me, Yeldon is out right away. However, I do think there's a case for Matt Forte here. In 6 out of the 8 weeks he's actually suited up and played, he has had at least 4 targets and at least 3 receptions. So we're talking PPR here. So he's got like a decent PPR floor, and he's actually had, I believe it's 6 double-digit weeks as far as PPR scoring as well. No, so it's 5. It's 5 weeks with double-digit PPR scoring. So Matt Forte, there's reason to believe that he could get some work in the passing game here this afternoon. And also the Kansas City Chiefs, while they've been fairly pretty good at not giving up yards to running backs, they have given up 9 rushing touchdowns so far this season. So it's something to keep an eye on. Like, yes, it's tough to predict those rushing touchdowns, absolutely, because you got to get close to the goal line, and includes a whole lot of other things with offense. But the Jets have been doing fairly well on offense, even though the Chiefs are a very, very capable defense. They do give up yards in the passing game, so that could lead to those rushing touchdowns, which I think Forte would probably be the guy that they use more often than Powell at the goal line. I need to look at the rushing splits, but just against Buffalo, he had 2 touchdowns in Week 9, so he's able to get those red zone touches, and we're able to get into the paint. So, with my final decision, would I sit Murray for him? I think I still lean towards Murray. However, if you really don't feel good about it, I would not be mad at you for starting Forte there. I think that's a fine option.
Yeah, I think like you said, Anthony, these weirdly enough at this point in the season, these are both kind of the same player, just on 2 different teams, which is
kind of crazy.
So weird. But that's where we are.
All right. Well, let's. We do have another question from Adam here. He says another tough one. So Amir Abdullah is out, and that's actually probably good news if you're an Abdullah owner, because he really hasn't been exciting. You have to start him pretty much because, I don't know, you probably don't have any better options. But he's out, so he's deciding between Theo Riddick versus Baltimore or Kenyon Drake versus Denver. I don't know. This is it's PPR, so I think for me that would be towards Theo Riddick. In fact, there's something that was just posted by Graham Barfield. I should go pull that up. I want to hear what you guys have to think about this, and I'll go pull up that tweet real quick. I'll have some good stats for you.
Well, I do have a similar decision with Abdullah being out. I can pick up Theo Riddick or start CJ Anderson. And that's in a standard as well. So I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts on that one. But as far as Abdullah versus Drake, yes, they added a running back off their practice squad. The Dolphins did this week. Elijah Penny's been there, but hasn't really gotten significant touches yet. So I think Drake is still going to be locked into the same workload he was seeing before Damian Williams left the lineup. I don't think he's the type of back to get starter caliber workload. I do think he's still going to split time with someone, whether it's Penny or whether it's the name escapes me, Anthony, but the new running back they just moved up. But
I don't remember either. He was on the practice squad, so whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think Drake is still worth a start over Riddick, just because I think his workload is going to be safer somewhat. I don't know that they love using Zach Zenner for whatever reason. We know what he is at this point. His talent is undrafted, but his effort is there. So good on you, Zach Zenner, but it's not going to help for fantasy. And the Lions just in general don't run the ball very well. They have all their receiving weapons healthy, and Riddick hasn't seen I think he's had like 1 game with more than 10 points so far, or maybe it's 2, and I'm remembering that wrong. But yeah, I think I would still stick with Drake. I like the thinking of Riddick with Abdullah out. But yeah, I can't do that. I think Drake is just safer.
I am too going with Drake. I actually do think he will get an increased workload because the guys behind him. I mean, they have shown some interest in getting what is his name, Sonoris Perry.
Sonoris Perry.
Yeah, and in the preseason especially, Perry got quite a bit of work, so I know they do like Perry, and they will try to get him involved. But still, if Miami's going to win this game, and that's a huge if, it's going to be through defense and running the ball, right? Cutler has been awful through the air, absolutely awful. So they have to find a way to get Drake the ball, maybe not running it between the tackles because that's not going to work out. Their defensive line stacks up very well against our O-line. But getting him out in the flat, maybe getting some little dump-off passes, pull a New England Patriots here, take advantage of the linebacker versus running back matchup. And in a PPR league, I think Drake will take advantage of that. So maybe it's wishful thinking on my part as a Dolphins fan, but I do think from a fantasy perspective, he's a better play than Riddick, who has really fallen off quite a bit this year. I don't know if it's Lions just aren't happy with him or if his performance is really minimalized that much.
Well, one quick question about Drake here for you. Are you worried about his fumbling problem? And do you think that if he were to have another one early in this game, that the Dolphins could just move to Perry and kind of just see what they have in him for this game? Because honestly, I could see that scenario. He's had 2 fumbles in the last 4 games that he's lost. So it's he still hasn't had a game above 10 carries. That's not a good rate of fumbling. That's fairly often. So if he were to have one more, I would be very scared about him losing his opportunity very quickly.
That's a really good point because Gase has taken a very no-nonsense stand since he's become the head coach. So I could definitely see that scenario as well.
As far as Theo Riddick goes, by the way, I think I'm going to take Theo Riddick in this option either way if Drake fumbles or not, because when Theo Riddick is playing and Amir Abdullah is not. Since 2015, he averages 15.44 points per game in PPR formats. So he gets about 5.5 receptions a game, and he kind of puts up a nice mixed yardage on the ground and in the air. So I love Theo Riddick when Amir Abdullah is not playing, and I would take him in this choice simply because it's a PPR league. If we were half point or even standard, I would start to lean towards Drake, but because I do think he's going to have some carries there if he does not fumble, because Damian Williams is gone and Sonoris Perry is kind of just a guy. But since it's PPR, I go Theo Riddick pretty firmly, actually.
Yuck.
Yeah,
I'm sorry that you have those choices in the first place.
That's a very good point, actually. So
So then would you guys both start Theo Riddick over CJ Anderson or not?
I think I would. Did Anthony say no?
I didn't say anything. I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right, no.
Even in a standard camp?
Standard, that's right. Yeah, I think he'll still be, in line for like a 60-yard or more game here. So if anyone's Zenner will probably get goal line carries, which is unfortunate because that's what you chase in standard. It also happens to be the hardest thing to predict in football, so that's really difficult. But if you're going for a nice safe game
in standard, I'd probably go Anderson.
Oh man, I think I might go Anderson too because I think he's just more likely to get a touchdown than.
Yeah, have you seen the Dolphins' run defense lately?
Yeah, they're pretty good, aren't they?
No, not at all.
No,
listen, so these questions that I added are from people on Twitter. They're not my own questions.
Yeah,
just wanted to clarify that.
All right, well let's go over one of them here. I believe we had one from Bill, correct? Yeah, yep. He sent me this one as well, and I actually just responded to it. But I'm curious what you guys think. So. This is in half PPR. I always want to say half point PPR, but that's like half point per reception. So that's not right. But anyway, so we got to pick 2 here. These are all wide receivers. We have Cooper Kupp, Corey Davis, Juju Smith-Schuster, or Nelson Agholor. What do you guys think? I have 2 in mind, but I'm curious what you are thinking.
Well, the Juju situation is tough, right? We don't know what's going to happen there with Antonio Brown. I still like him a lot, though, against the Cincinnati Bengals. Rams against the Cardinals. Oh my, this is a tough because I'd like to play Kupp, Juju, and Aguilar. I mean, in all honesty, if I could do that, but I can't. So I am probably going to go with Juju and Aguilar.
I can get behind that. I would really want to start Juju if I knew that Brown were sitting. Unfortunately, we will likely not know that. when you have to make these choices. So for that reason, I think I'm going to go with Corey Davis and Cooper Kupp. And oh man, if it's always like, if I get burned just 6 more times, I might not start Corey Davis anymore. But
I was just gonna say that.
No one burns Kent Wyrock 6 weeks in a row. Corey Davis. Oh man, I want him to succeed, man, because I know he's talented. I've seen, his tape looks so good. And honestly, when he gets decent throws from Mariota, he makes it work and he makes really good catches. But Mariota's been kind of sketchy recently. And so Rashard Matthews is out this week. This is now confirmed. So we're going against a very subpar defense, a pass defense there. And I don't know how Corey Davis doesn't get 10 targets this week, honestly. I mean, it would require the Titans to completely abandon any chance of winning, which I don't see happening. I think that their defense is going to be able to handle Tom Savage, and I think they're going to be able to stay in this game fairly easily. And now that's going to probably mean that they use the run game. And, we talked a little bit about DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, and they love using both of those guys. But Mariota's looking to get his game right. I mean, he had an awesome season last year, and he knows that he's capable of performing better than he has been this year. So I'm sure he's really, really focused on trying to figure out what his errors are in his game this year that is causing these kind of bad passes and bad situations. But I did read that when he has a tight window for throwing a football, like a defender's within a certain amount of yards, he has a very low completion percentage, like lower than Tom Savage. So that kind of gives you a kind of a view into what is causing Mariota to have these issues. Is he's probably not getting as much separation from his receivers as he would like. So to me, I would like to think that Corey Davis is capable of running clean enough routes to get that separation. And he's, a big frame. He can catch the ball whenever he needs to. He's good at getting the jump ball and everything. So I still want to start Corey Davis here. And Juju, I love Juju as well. I've been touting him all season. I just think Cooper Kupp is in line to get, good targets, good reception floor here, since we are talking a half point per reception. So to me, I would be fine with starting Kupp no matter what. And then I'm taking Corey Davis on the upside here because he has a good matchup once again. Now, last week, the whole offense fell apart. So I think that's why Corey Davis kind of ended up taking the hit there. But I want to believe. I just want to believe, and that's what I'm going to go with. So Cooper Kupp and Corey Davis for me.
Well, for me, Kent, it's the exact same answer: Cooper Kupp and Corey Davis. And the biggest thing is volume in terms of the options that you have there. I think with Rashard Matthews being out, Corey Davis is going to see those 10, maybe 12 targets, like you said. He's done it before. And then with Cooper Kupp as well, he was more involved with Robert Woods being out. He's been more involved, kind of looking like he did at the beginning of the season when he was a waiver darling. So I like the increased volume there with those two guys. Aguilar against the Seahawks, I'm not sure how much Aguilar will be used. I think the way the Seahawks have been playing, it's kind of hit and miss since Sherman and Chancellor have been out. And Alshon Jeffrey, the news dropped this week with his mega giant contract, so he'll be looking to make some plays and get it open. So I'm not sure how. I think the Eagles are just going to destroy the Seahawks tonight, and I'm not sure. I think they'll be able to run the ball just fine. And Aguilar's big games have kind of been when Wentz has had to throw a bunch. So for me, Aguilar would be a close third with Davis, but I think it's Kupp and Davis. Juju for me, it's just a waiting thing. If we knew Antonio Brown was out, he would probably be the number 1 on this list, but because we don't know yet, I think he's there at number 4 for me.
By the way, we did have another member of the show join up. I don't know if he's planning on talking, but he's probably too busy putting Josh Gordon into every single one of his lineups. But Kevin Steele is hanging out in here somewhere, just kind of creeping on us.
It's just the logo for now, Ken. It's just for just for visual effect.
I think he's just trying to become Josh Gordon himself. He's just giving up his body to the Josh Gordon experience. That's all he's doing.
I'm pretty sure they were twins, separated at birth, and then split into a space-time continuum because they're obviously different ages. So I'm sure that's what happened.
All right. Well, if he decides to jump in, we'll talk to him a bit about that. But for now, he's a fly on the wall. So let's talk about another one here. This is another one from Bill. I assume it's also half PPR here. Frank Gore or Jamal Williams? And my answer is Jamal. Next question. That's how
Jamal Williams.
That's
Jamal
how
Williams.
I look at it.
Jamal Williams, and then also Jamal Williams.
Yeah, Frank Gore is just losing his touches, and he's finally hitting the age curve, and it's affecting him. And it was going to happen eventually. Frank Gore's a Hall of Famer, but you can't start him in fantasy anymore.
I mean, I still think you could. He's flex worthy. Just the way the Colts have been hanging in there with teams, not winning any of the games, thankfully, but they've been hanging in and been competitive. And it's worth noting that I think it'll take 60 or so yards, or maybe 40 or so yards. Frank Gore can pass Jerome Bettis and someone else and end up as the fifth highest rusher of all time. Depending on how much work he gets in this game. So that's not necessarily fantasy relevant, but it is if they're behind and he has 12 carries and 30 yards and they want to get him to that 40 mark or that 60 mark or whatever. That's a milestone he could pass in this game, but I don't think he's startable over Jamal Williams. I think Aaron Jones being back is only going to be in a limited capacity. We talked about that a little bit. Maybe 5 to 6 carries or 5 to 6 touches for him this week. I think they're content with just feeding Jamal Williams a good amount. I think he's proven that he's not better than Montgomery or Jones, but that he's serviceable at least for what they want to do with that offense.
I was going to say, if you are planning on starting Frank Gore for the rest of the season, it's either this week or next week. They get the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. Which I actually don't see the Colts running the ball too much, so that kind of is a point against him there. So I think next week against the Bills would be the only real smash matchup he has left. After that, he gets, I believe it's Denver and then the Ravens, so 2 pretty stout run defenses there. I would not plan on starting him there, not even in a flex. But next week, if you want to try and get through your first week of your playoffs, if you're in a six team figure. You could try, throwing him out there for your flex, and he's going to be a solid, 10-point play or something. He'll be okay. He's not going to get you 2 touchdowns and 150 yards ever, that. But I could see starting him next week, but not this week and not the last 2 weeks.
If you're in a position to have to start Frank Gore, you're already out of the playoffs anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
There's the gold takes we needed.
I've been here. I've been here the entire time, just listening, just taking it all in.
Well,
you've been here the whole time, bro.
Ever, yeah.
All right. Well, it sounds like we got that one wrapped up. I think we're all kind of on the Jamal train there. Kevin, I'm guessing you would agree with that.
Well, yeah.
You don't want to start Gore, so
let's move on. Ask me that question.
Don't even ask. I don't want to hear that crap.
He wouldn't even be on my roster, let alone, thinking about playing him. So,
yeah. All right. So then we have one more, also half PPR. It is Lamar Miller or Jerick McKinnon.
McKinnon all day. Love Jerick McKinnon today. Jerick McKinnon has top 10 upside. Playing a defense that allows a ton to pass catching running backs. This is Jerick McKinnon day.
Kevin stole all my points.
And then you also have the narrative that he's from Atlanta, so he's returning back to his hometown. So if you believe in narratives,
there's been a lot of stories here in Minnesota this week about him going back to his hometown, and he's trying to to show him what he's got. So yeah, I'm all aboard that narrative. I like a narrative every once in a while. I wouldn't say I operate on it, consistently, but every once in a while there's a good one. And I think this is a good one you take advantage of.
Well, and doesn't it seem like with the way Latavius Murray has been playing and the touchdowns he's been getting that it's time for a Jerick McKinnon game, just to swing it back to being an unpredictable kind of mess. But I mean, I think like you said, Kev, the pass catching running back succeeds. It seems like every week against the Falcons, and yeah, it's about time for that. It's about time.
Okay. Can I tell you guys something as a Vikings fan? Latavius Murray has been getting it done on the scoreboard. You know, he's putting up yards, he's getting carries, he's getting some touchdowns. But it is so frustrating to watch Latavius Murray play football because he's so bad at running, and I hate it so much.
He just gets what's blocked, and that's about it.
I talk to people on Reddit, about fantasy football stuff, and they're like, "Oh, Latavius Murray, I love Latavius Murray. He's great. He's doing good. He's getting touchdowns." I'm like, you don't watch him. You don't watch him struggle at the line and tip-tap his toes and do nothing with it. Oh, my God, it's so frustrating. He ends up getting yards because our offensive line is playing spectacular this year. Like, I've never seen a team go from, like, bottom 5 offensive line to probably top 10. I don't know. That might be a little biased, but I think they're doing pretty well. So the offensive line is making all the plays for him right now. I mean, Latavius Murray is not by his own merit a talented running back, and I hate to watch him play football. But with that being said, this offense is rolling, and he is the guy getting those red zone touches. He is the one getting those goal line carries. So you like to see that touchdown potential. He's got 4 in the last 3 weeks. I mean, and he's got 5 in the last 4 weeks that he's played. So you're going to expect those to continue, and there's no reason not to. I just wanted to let you know that I hate watching him do it, but he is going to continue doing it. So he's worth a play. I like McKinnon more. I'm on the Kevin Steele train here with McKinnon being the better of the 2 running backs. It's just a matter of how they get used, and the Vikings are winning games, which means we're going to grind the clock with Murray because, McKinnon's just not quite as good at that because Murray's, 6'3" and 240 or something like that. That might be a bit much, but he's a big boy and we can grind the clock with him. So that's why he's been getting these carries. So, and the Falcons is probably the only team we played in the last few weeks that will have the ability to really rack up the scoreboard against us. So we could be playing from behind here if the Falcons do get rolling early. And I agree that will turn this into a McKinnon game in catch-up mode. So I personally think this is a better week for McKinnon and not a good week for Murray.
Can we just take a second to imagine what the Vikings offense would look like if Dalvin Cook was still playing? Because
Dalvin Cook was the leading rusher on his team until 4 weeks ago, and he got injured week 4?
Yeah.
So
if he was running behind that offensive line still instead of Murray, oh my gosh, they could be the best team in the league, hands down. They're in the conversation right now, but I don't know that it would be more than a 2-team conversation if Cook was still running for this team.
I don't want to torture Kent with those thoughts.
If Sam Bradford had 2 knees and we had Dalvin, and if Dalvin Cook had 2 knees, then we would have a very, very, very good offense. But
if Sam Bradford had 1 knee.
I was going to say,
collectively,
between the 2 of those players, we have 1.5 knees. So unfortunately, it's not going to work this year. But luckily, everyone else is playing great. So anyway, enough about the Vikings. Let's talk about fantasy football. We do have one more question here from Martin, and he's looking at a standard league. He has Marquise Lee or Sammy Watkins. What do you guys feel about this one?
It's Marquise Lee, and it's super easy. Sammy Watkins is not startable this week. He's going to see Patrick Peterson, so no thank you. I'd rather play Josh Reynolds or obviously Cooper Kupp. Marquise Lee, much better matchup. Blake Bortles obviously is well in play this week as a starter as well. Absolutely crushes the Colts every chance he gets. Fantastic matchup for Marquise Lee. It's 10th in targets over the last 4 or 5 weeks. Marquise Lee, it's not even close. I wouldn't start Sammy Watkins anywhere this week.
Yeah, the Colts do have that one really good corner who's been locking some guys down, but I still agree with you. I don't think I'm starting Sammy Watkins against Peterson. I'll take the chance with Lee there. He lines up all over the place anyway. So
I agree with everything that was just said, except that the Colts have a good corner.
No, I mean, it's not even necessarily that the Colts have a good cornerback, but what they do is, I'm sure you know this, their defensive scheme, they lock down wide receiver ones.
Yeah.
The only thing is I don't think they will treat Marquise Lee as a wide receiver one in terms of scheme. I mean,
and he plays too much
he plays out of the
slot.
slot. They'll probably, cover Dede Westbrook more so. So I'm fine with the Marquise Lee call here. Sammy Watkins against Peterson is not something you want to see. I mean, last week Marquise Lee went and saw him quite a bit and only had 2 targets and 1 reception. So, yeah, I don't want to start Watkins if I do not have to this week. And, in fact, I think I need to go check a lineup. So, yeah, I'm fine with that call, Marquise Lee for me.
I think even in the same matchup, I'd start Marquise Lee over Watkins at this point. He's just seeing with Allen Hurns not being there, he's just seeing a super, super safe floor and a nice ceiling of targets and volume. And the Jags defense has had some not they haven't played bad, but they've been exploited by a couple of teams recently, and then and the Chargers and the Cardinals have had some success against them. So the Jags have had to answer by passing the ball, and they can't just stick to their formula that they've had for most of the season. Bortles has had to throw an obnoxious amount the last 4 weeks or so. So definitely I think it's Lee.
Yeah, and real quick, I did want to say something. We also saw that – oh, wait, what did I just had it? Where did it go? Oh, yeah, okay, so Sammy Watkins going against Patrick Peterson. Now, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but Cooper Kupp, I think, is a fantastic play this week as a pivot off of Sammy Watkins, because even though Peterson is locking down wide receiver ones, the Cardinals are still 24th against the wide receiver position in points against this year, fantasy points against. So Cooper Kupp, start. He's going to get a high reception floor. In PPR leagues, he's going to probably put in some work this week. So I start Cooper Kupp where I have him this week.
For sure. I don't disagree there.
All right. Also, we need someone to hack into Kevin Steele's account and sabotage his team so that Martin Cole can have the easy road to the 2nd seed in their league. I will take care of that. Actually, I have no idea how to hack anything. So
that's actually a great matchup. They're both 9-2 in the listener league. The projections, for what it's worth, are pretty close. It's a pretty close matchup. It's going to be a fun one to watch. Since I'm out in this league, I usually just watch the other people's matchups.
Just kind of take it all in and have fun with it.
Exactly.
Hey, so Anthony, this Tyreek Hill or AB playing question, what's kind of like, is he trying to say, should he sit Antonio Brown for Tyreek Hill right now?
That's the way it seems. It says it's a fab league. I don't know what that has anything to do with this question, but he wants to know if he should play Tyreek Hill or risk Antonio Brown not playing. So I would assume that he's going to bench Brown for Hill, which there's nobody else you can bench for Hill. I mean, that's
yeah, I guess I need to know what his other receivers are. Tyreek Hill does draw a pretty good matchup here, so I wouldn't be really opposed to it. I mean, Tyreek Hill is definitely a wide receiver, fringe 1 to 2 kind of range. He has low weeks, so that kind of messes with you. But he's been getting some targets. He has 18 targets over the last 2 weeks, which is nice because when he has those low target games, then that's when he drops those duds on you. So it's good to see this offense trying to get him going. He's definitely a key offensive component there. So I think I'd be fine starting Tyreek Hill over Brown if you're really worried, and if you have zero other options. Like if you get to Monday night and Antonio Brown is out and you have no one that you can replace him with, like Bryant's taken or anyone else, then yeah, go ahead and put in Hill and kind of sleep in peace tonight, as opposed to worrying about it. I'm not opposed to that.
I think Tyreek Hill is such a good play this week that I'm not either. Dude lights it up against the Jets, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play this one, especially since I am a big-time Tyreek Hill owner across the board. So.
Yep. Okay, well, looks like that's all we have for questions. So let's just go ahead and maybe pull out some games here from the slate this week and kind of talk about those.
One.
Oh, you have a question? Yeah, by all means, throw it out there.
This is my one team that's on the bubble that needs to win this week, Derrick Henry or Jay Ajayi?
Ooh, man. I mean, so I looked at the Philadelphia running backs and kind of how they're getting those touches since Ajayi joined the team. And you kind of expected this slow progression towards Ajayi passing Blunt in the pecking order, but it really hasn't happened over 3 weeks. He's taken kind of that second string role there as far as being the early down grinder. So if Blunt is still getting the majority of the carries, then I don't really like Jay Ajayi that much. I mean, you hope for a big play, and that's really all it can take. Now, he's had a couple of those over the past 3 weeks, but it's tough to really bank on that kind of stuff. So for me, what was the other option you had? It was Ajayi or who?
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry. Man, I think I go Derrick Henry. I think he's just more likely to get 10 to 13 carries, and he's a better running back. So I lean Derrick Henry here. I think that Derrick Henry might be on the verge of kicking DeMarco Murray to the curb if Murray has any more bad games. So yeah, I'm gonna go Derrick Henry there.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sorry. I saw something on Twitter with somebody who bought Josh Gordon stuff and was like posting a picture of it and has the same exact picture as their icon as Kev. And I'm like, man, Kev is freaking obsessed at this point. He went out and actually bought Gordon stuff, but it wasn't him.
Kevin, if Josh Gordon wins you any lineups this week in DFS, are you going to buy yourself a Josh Gordon jersey, or is it already in the mail?
It's already in the mail.
Yeah, I did. I figured it was.
So you have a challenge.
It shouldn't surprise you though, because there is a legion of us Josh Gordon, truthers. So there's a whole community.
Are you the leader?
Yeah, he's
going back to the question though. I agree with the Derrick Henry thing. Ajayi has been doing well with minimal carries, but how long can you continue to get lucky with that? Can only break out so many 70-yard touchdown runs, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. I saw a video of one of them when he broke down the left side of the field. I don't particularly remember who he's playing against, but dude, when Jay Ajayi runs, it looks like his knees are put together wrong, man. Like he's just got a wobble to his step.
They are put together wrong.
They're so bad, man. I don't know how he
bone in there.
It was gross looking. So, man, I have no long-term confidence in Jay Ajayi personally, but I've never really liked him. In fact, I thought he was going to bust before the beginning of this year, so I had that called from day one. But he's been okay. Like he said, he's going to get some big runs here and there. But
go ahead.
Have
the same opinion as the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if I like that really, based on what's happened recently with them. So. Hey, I got a question for you guys quick, since we're pulling our own teams. I forgot I had one in mind. So I have in a PPR league, this is a flex decision. I have Devonta Freeman against the Vikings, DeMarco Murray against Houston, or Alex Collins against the Lions. What do you guys think?
Gosh, I was like, oh, this is easy so far with Freeman versus Murray. And then you're like, oh, Alex Collins. Shit. I might still lean Freeman, though. What do you think, Kev?
Alex Collins. I would like to say Freeman, but it's a tough matchup for him. Though he does play better he does play better at home than he does on the road. So I think there's a positive there. But I just think Alex Collins is the easier matchup and volume in his favor. So the Lions have been terrible at stopping the run since Lodi Nadas went down. So I just like that matchup for him.
Yeah, this is in a league where I'm fighting for a playoff spot here this last week. So I had Collins in, and then I kind of, I've been flip-flopping and going back and forth on it. So I want it. With Kai, did you get your say in?
Well, after checking a couple of lifelines, I'm going to lean Collins as well. I wish I could say Murray, but I feel like Collins has a much safer floor of carries than Murray does at this point. And he's scored touchdowns in back-to-back weeks, in case that means anything. And at home, he has played especially well. 80 yards against the Steelers, 74 yards against the Bears, 113 yards against the Dolphins, and just 60 yards last week against Houston. But that is the best run defense among those teams. So I think Collins is just too safe of a play.
All right, I'm gonna lock in Collins. This week is sponsored by TFA over in that league, so let's hope that works out for me.
You owe me a Coke if it ends up being Freeman.
Yeah. All right, I'll hold you to that.
Why can't you? Who else are you starting that you can't start Freeman?
Right now I have Deion Lewis in against Buffalo. That's a lock for me, and I also have Joe Mixon in. Which I think Joe Mixon is a better play than both Freeman and Murray, no matter what. So,
I think you're point chasing. I wouldn't do that. I think.
Well, I've had him in my lineup for the last 6 weeks. So
he just hasn't been very good. I mean, he had one good week last week, but then if you look at the Browns, who before were good against stopping the run, but you have to factor in all the injuries they've had. I mean, they've lost Ogba, they've lost Jamie Collins. They've been hammered with injuries among their offensive line or the defensive line. So the Bengals are terrible at running the football. I mean, last week was just mainly because of injury. You look at the Steelers. I mean, I don't think even with Antonio Brown plays, it's just not a good matchup for Joe Mixon. So I would play Devonta Freeman and Alex Collins, especially if you need the win to get in, because I just don't think there's that high of an upside for Joe Mixon in this matchup.
Now, PPR?
Yes, is full PPR. Yeah.
I mean, he scored double-digit points for the last 5 weeks in PPR, so it's.
And for the Steelers, Ryan Shazier is looking like he may not play, and that's a big, big piece of that defense. So I did kind of take that into consideration as well. But it's I know I get it, and Joe Mixon's not a 100% lock for me, but I just thought he was a better play than Freeman or Murray this week. So that's kind of why I was picking between. You know, if I have Mixon and Collins in, they're both going to be either a running back 2 or a flex. So it's like it didn't really matter.
I'd be okay with you putting him in over Freeman. I mean, it's Freeman's first game back. You don't know what's going to happen. Tougher matchup than Mixon has. So.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. I've gotten a lot of information there, so I'll make my own decisions and fail with those. But anyway, we do have some last-minute questions we have coming in here in the YouTube chat. So we got about 15 minutes left to cover those. Let's start with TN, and we're going to talk about some wide receivers in standard leagues. So we are talking about Sterling Shepard, Dede Westbrook, or Golden Tate this week in the standard league. I think I'm going to go Sterling Shepard and Tate. Go ahead, Kai.
No, yeah. I was just going to say exactly what you were saying. I don't know that Dede Westbrook is startable. Even with Allen Hurns still not there, I don't think he's in the same class as those other two.
I think he will be. I don't know if he's there yet.
Maybe next season, but
I mean, what's the scenario, TN? Do you need this to get in? Do you have some wiggle room? Can you just try out a play this week and see what happens? I would probably lean Shepard and Tate as well, but Westbrook's very intriguing to me.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing for me is he's connected to Blake Bortles, and it's just not something that you really want. You know, when you're making a tough choice between two receivers, you typically start to look at who's throwing the ball. So I'd rather have Matt Stafford. They're going against Baltimore, which they have good numbers against wide receivers and quarterbacks, but their 6 wins have come against lower tier quarterbacks. I mean, when they win games, they're not against tough competition. So their pass defense numbers have been kind of skewed in their favor a little bit. And I think Matt Stafford and company will be a team that is able to exploit them a little bit more so than, the teams like the Browns or I think the Cardinals played when they had Drew Stanton in. I think that Golden Tate could have a good day. I think he gets enough targets to have a decent yardage floor. So he's a nice safe play. And you don't, if he is fighting for a playoff spot, you don't want to have a dumpster game from any of your players. So it's make or break game. He says he's in the 7th spot. So probably looking to move up into the 6th.
Well, Ken, who do you trust more throwing the ball to your receiver, Blake Bortles or Geno Smith?
You know, you guys aren't gonna like this,
Because
but
I lean Geno.
I'm a little bit of a Geno sympathizer. So,
don't be.
yeah, no, I know, I get it. It's not
He's-
something I'm proud of. I had to like talk myself up to even mentioning it. But Geno Smith has a bad rap because he was in some really bad situations for the Jets. I think I talked about this on the pod this last week, but you put a competent receiver in front of him, and he's able to do a decent enough job to get the ball to them. Like, a majority of his interceptions were during his rookie year, which was like historically awful. However, he also had 0 receivers that year. He had no help. That team was just terrible. So having any expectations of that, since then he's been more decent. He's above a 1-to-1 touchdown to int ratio, which I know again isn't spectacular, but at least he's not an int machine like some people are making him out to be. So I think Geno Smith will be fine for Sterling Shepard. I think, he'll rely, on his more, reliable receiving options, which will be Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard. And everyone else there is just kind of bad. So, I mean, there's some okay options if you really want a flyer, but I wouldn't take them, consistently. But I'm not worried of Geno Smith that much. Not as much as Blake Bortles, I would say.
Well, Ken, really, I was setting you up there. I know how much you believe in Geno compared to some other people, but I have to agree with you and support that. To me, Geno Smith he's just Ryan Fitzpatrick if he didn't go to Harvard. It's basically the same player to me. And some people look at Geno like he's this just like devastating interception bomb waiting to happen. And like you said, he was an unprepared rookie who got thrown into a bad lineup. And I look at a lot of that as not being his fault. And since then he's had, decent games, good games, and he's had meltdown games, which is exactly what the Jets got from Ryan Fitzpatrick. So again, not sure. Like if he never got sucker punched, probably I don't know that the Jets did do anything different from this point on. I think everything would have gone exactly the same in a funny, messed up world. But I think Geno will be fine for Shepard and for Ingram. I don't know that you want to start any other giant wide receiver or pass catcher, not even a Shane Vereen. I think it's Ingram and Shepard, and that's about it. But yeah, I don't think Geno's going to implode this offense. I think it'll be 4 or 5 weeks before who's that kid? Webb, before Davis Webb enters the lineup. So yeah, I've got to totally agree with you, Ken.
All right, well, we got a couple more quick questions here we can go through, so let's try and get those done before kickoff here in 9 minutes. Up next, we have in a standard league, we're talking Jerick McKinnon or Isaiah Crowell. I think I already know the answer for some of the people in this group. I'm going to go ahead and say McKinnon, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, McKinnon.
I would go McKinnon in a PPR for sure. I think it's closer in standard, but I think I would still lean McKinnon in standard too. You like the way Isaiah Crowell's been playing the last few weeks, and the Chargers' run defense is certainly something to exploit. But we've talked about how much we like McKinnon this week and the big game that he could possibly have. I don't think that Crowell has that same upside that McKinnon does.
Also, real quick, I think the Chargers are absolutely going to destroy the Browns. So
Oh, yeah.
I throw a running game out of the window for the Browns as much as
100%.
possible.
That could happen.
Which, I mean, not that that's any different from any other week, but yeah, no, I don't really like Crow this week that much. And
Chargers defense for sure. You
Chargers
mentioned that in the
defense.
podcast.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's money right there. All right. Well, it sounds like we're all pretty firmly on the McKinnon side of that. So let's go on to Latavius Murray or Devontae Booker in PPR. Regardless of
Miami.
Yes.
Yeah, Booker.
You taking Booker?
Mm-hmm.
I think even regardless of my hate for Latavius Murray, I think I'm going to pick him. Just because, like I said, he's been getting the opportunity based on how well the Vikings are doing. I like I did mention earlier, that the Falcons have the potential to get ahead in this game, but the Vikings are certainly capable offensively as well. So I could still see that. Devontae Booker, I still don't see the volume I would like in someone I'm confident in starting. And especially because we don't really know if they're going to end up using him more or CJ Anderson more on any given week until either of the two kind of become the clear-cut starter there. I'm afraid of starting them. I have Devontae Booker on some of my benches, but he's kind of a stash in hopes that they kind of come out and say, like, he's the starter now, and we're going to run with him, and CJ Anderson's done. They might even cut him. I don't know. Like, I would hope for something like that before I start putting Devontae Booker in my lineup. So I'm going to lean Murray on this one.
That's a good point. But I mean, he doesn't have a lot of usage, but man, Miami's linebackers are incredibly bad. So if he's going to have a blow-up game, it's going to be today. Not a lot of time. More questions coming in there, Broseph.
Yeah, let's get to these. Okay, so up next we got D.D. Westbrook or T.Y. Hilton in half-point PPR. He says normally he'd take Hilton, but it's a bad matchup against Jacksonville, which I agree with. Yeah, I would not start T.Y. Hilton in any format this week, so it's Westbrook for me.
I would start Hilton if your only other option is D.D. Westbrook.
Yeah.
I would probably look at the waivers and see what's going on there. Just because, yeah, I even as a Colts fan, I don't want to start T.Y. Hilton anywhere. But T.Y. Hilton has shown that even in bad matchups, he can randomly have a 20-point game, and it only takes one catch with him. I think D.D. Westbrook doesn't quite have that upside yet, just because of the quarterback throwing him the ball. And I think the Colts are just weirdly playing well, and it just scares me with, sure, you could put some of it on, okay, the Steelers and the Bengals are the Steelers and the Bengals, and they have bad games against bad teams sometimes. But I think part of it is the Colts have been playing well. They have seemingly have a pass rush that they have not had all season. And their secondary, despite all the being ravished with injuries, they have played well the last couple of games. So I think they can get torn up on the ground this week. I don't think they'll be able to stop Fournette. They couldn't last time. These two teams played.
The problem with Hilton is that 90% of his fantasy production this year comes from 3 games, and the rest of the time he has 2 or 3 catches. I hate that I'm going to go with D.D. Westbrook here, but I am. You just can't trust. You can't trust T.Y. at this point, especially against Jacksonville. He had 2 for 27 in their last matchup just 5 weeks ago. So.
Well, and I don't trust T.Y. by any means, but I think if your only other option is a rookie that has.
But he has 16 targets over the past 2 games, so he's getting targeted.
True. And I think a lot of that last week, though, was Marquise Lee being on Patrick Peterson or Patrick Peterson being on Marquise Lee. But I don't know. I'm still not ready with Westbrook. This game could totally change that opinion, but I'm not ready yet.
There's no way in hell that you start T.Y. Hilton. Like, it's not even a question. Like, they're facing one of the best secondaries in the league that have shut everybody down. And Jacoby Brissett has looked horrible. The Colts are not good. The last week was more of a product of the Titans being bad and not looking very good at all, more so than anything that has to do with the Colts. So you don't start T.Y. Hilton. It's not even a question if you should even think about starting him. D.D. Westbrook certainly is in play this week. Probably one of the best matchups he's going to see all year in this offense. And like I've already said, Blake Bortles balls against the Colts, whether it's Andrew Luck playing, whoever's playing, it doesn't matter. He's always played very well against the Colts. So Marquise Lee and D.D. Westbrook are both great plays today. So it's not even a question. You put D.D. Westbrook in over T.Y. Hilton, and you're not even thinking about it.
All right, we got that one wrapped up. We got one more question here. Well, maybe like a double question. So real quick, let's go Alex Smith or Winston. Winston back off his injury.
Smith.
I'm going to go Smith here as well. I think he's safer.
I think I want to start Winston so bad, but has he fully recovered? It's a good matchup against the Packers, so that's what has me like even thinking about it. But I think this is the week the Chiefs turn it around. I don't think that they can continue to play this way without Andy Reid doing something to turn it around.
I will say that if you're a massive underdog this week and you really, really need a win, I think Jameis Winston is more likely to have that big upside play than Alex Smith. So if you really want to chase a big day, then Winston. But otherwise, I'd say Smith. Just get yourself a nice 17 points, most likely, depending on your format, and take that and run with it. So the other question that Cody has for us is, let's see, I think this must be a flex situation. So it's Duke Johnson or Emmanuel Sanders in 0.5 PPR.
Manny, baby.
Yeah, I would take him too. Simeon's not good, but he's the best quarterback there. Duke Johnson.
What was the other option? Oh, yeah, it's Manny Sanders. And for the record, I would have went Jameis Winston on the other one.
Okay, yeah. Sorry for skipping you there, Kev. All right.
Go time?
You got any thoughts? Yeah, I mean, we're two minutes from kickoff here, so looks like we got to all of the questions. Guys, any last-minute comments you'd like to tell all of our listeners before they get to this Week 13 matchup?
Come on, Miami, let's get a friggin' win. It's Trevor Siemian, for Christ's sake.
I was trying to say real quick.
Huge upgrade though from what they've had so far.
He's the best quarterback there. He's not a good quarterback, but he's the best one they have.
Well, he's the best healthy one. Chad Kelly's not healthy yet, so.
It's a fantastic week. I've been looking forward to this week all week, and it has nothing to do with the Chiefs. I haven't even really thought about them. I'm excited to see Josh Gordon play today. So, it's Josh Gordon is back, boys. So
I hope Red Zone kind of focuses on that game a bit. There's only 4 games in the second tier, so.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm ready for Josh Gordon's 2-catch, 62-yard performance. I'm ready for it.
I don't care what he does. He could go out and have 0 catches for all I care. I'm just happy that he's back.
I expect that to happen. I do. I think he's going to have at least 2 good catches. I think that's what's going to happen.
For what it's worth, Bovada, the gambling website, had some prop bets on him. They had him at 3 receptions and 40 yards or something, 36 yards, something like that. So Vegas usually knows what they're talking about to a degree. I think it'd be safe to say that he's probably not going to have a blow-up game. But I would love to see it. That would just make the whole story that much better, honestly.
Best of luck to everyone in your playoff, Chase.
Absolutely. Have a good week, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, we are the TFA, the Fantasy Authority. You can find us on Twitter at the Fantasy Authority. I am Ken Wyrock, your host for this week. Anthony was the backup host. Remember that if you're starting us in your podcast league.
I'm the best backup host there is.
Sorry about it. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully we got all your questions answered, and you guys go ahead and win your matchup this week and get to the playoffs. So good luck, and we will see you guys later.
Adios.
See you.